Hello, everyone. I'm Al Deldegan, creator and producer of the Leaders, Innovators, and Big Ideas podcast, supported by Rainforest Alberta. This podcast showcases the people who are working to improve Alberta's innovation ecosystem.
Get your head into the cloud with my guest, Kevin Evans. Let's do this. Hey, everybody. Welcome to the LIBI Podcast. Today, my guest is this really cool dude by the name of Kevin Evans. I'm excited. Kevin, thanks for joining me.
Yeah, pleasure to be on, Al. Really enjoy the episodes, right, that I've been listening to.
Awesome.
Everything that you're doing with the podcast. It's great.
Awesome. I appreciate that. So why don't you start by giving us an idea of who you are? Because when you go to your LinkedIn, you can't help but be impressed. I'll read off your caption: cloud native leader, Microsoft Cloud Technologist, founder, Cloud to Code, and CNCF ambassador. Yeah. Why don't we go through this and let's talk a little bit about how you got where you are today.
So yeah, there's a lot going on there, right? I don't like to be bored. Probably the best way of explaining things. My team as well, and we'll get onto that, right? I've got some rock stars, right, in my team, but they're like, what's he come up with this weekend, right? Especially when it comes to code to cloud stuff. So yeah, my day job, right? At the moment, I work at Microsoft Canada. I'm one of their cloud technologists, right? So we call it a technical specialist, which pretty much means everything, right? And I work with our enterprise customers here in the West. So I cover everything from Winnipeg to Victoria. It's quite a large space, right? And I deal mainly with our enterprise customers. So if you think about all the big energy companies that we've got right here in Western Canada and some of our commercial ones as well. So like that's everything to do with our cloud platforms. And yeah, I've been here now at Microsoft 3.5 years. So I started off in Microsoft UK.
Okay.
I then got, and I'm trying to stay as humble as possible about this because I'm not very good about talking about my achievements, believe it or not. But somebody watched I was a content creator, and I still am, and they ended up bringing me here to Canada, right?
Oh, nice.
So, and that was a long life dream of mine, was to immigrate here.
Okay.
So yeah, I touch on whatever's out, right? Like whatever's driving innovation, if it's cybersecurity or platforms or helping folks develop applications, that kind of thing, right? So sort of really translating those, I like to call them realistic scenarios, because every technology provider in the world obviously says they've got the magic sauce, right? The utopia to fix all of your life's problems, right? And that's where I come in, really, to translate those requirements.
Excellent.
And then sort of segueing from there is when I came to Canada, and trying to do some maths here on the top of my head, I think it's 2022. I noticed there was some gaps. And what I mean gaps is stuff that was happening in Europe or even down, south of the border wasn't happening here, right? And I was like, why is that not happening here? So I set up a organization here, and it's aligned to the Cloud Native Computing Foundation. And folks are like, well, what's that? And what does that do? For the folks in the tech space, it's a subsidiary organization of the Linux Foundation. I don't know if folks have heard about Linux, but it's a open source operating system that's been around since the early 90s, right? So basically, the CNCF is an organization that everything is open source. It's globally contributed, and it owns some big platforms and solutions that you wouldn't even know you were using, but everything from the banks to when you go and get gas, everything's running on this kind of technology, right? Which is adopted. So I set up a chapter here in Calgary, right? CNCF Calgary, and it's just been a growing success.
Oh, cool.
So we run about 4 to 5, I call them events every year. We've got one coming up, and we invite folks down and we teach them stuff, because I'm all about skills initiative as well. So we teach folk stuff, and we've been building a community around cloud native technologies and how to adopt them. So yeah, and recently I just got awarded a CNCF ambassadorship. So I'm pretty proud about that. I think
congratulations.
Well, thank you very much. I'm one of 12 people in Canada that have got it. So
wow,
it took some work to get it. I'll be quite honest, but again, I'm community focused, and that's what you'll hear over and over again, right? It's like, what can I give back immediately? Like, I set myself on a mission to give away my knowledge for free as much as possible, which scares a lot of people. But for me, that's about reducing the barriers, right? And the access. You know, somebody may have a great idea, but doesn't know how to really go about it.
Yeah.
So
yeah, that makes sense.
Or somebody starting off in career, right? They don't know where to start. I was one of those people as well, right? Like, and there's a lot of things like behind a paywall as well when it comes to education. And I'm like, well, if I can give somebody some insight and it points them in the right direction, then that's a big thing for me. And we started to build the team out there, and like, I've got some of the best people in the city. When I say that, I genuinely mean that. Like, the team I've got that they're organizers at the CNCF chapter, work for all sorts of organizations that are pretty much top of their game.
Wow, that's amazing.
I'm blessed, really blessed. So, and that's where Code to Cloud sort of emerged as well.
Okay.
So Code to Cloud started off as a YouTube channel.
Okay.
Then a podcast, and then it turned into in-person events because people were asking for that as well. And now it's helping startups and providing advisory services, and has an engineering team. And
wow.
Things seem to be like growing is out of my control, if that makes sense. All for the better. So that's where we are today.
Well, that's probably a good thing when you start a community, is to have it continue on without you.
That's the goal, right? Like, at the end of the day, you want it to grow and survive without the person that started it, right? That's when you know it's a success, right? Yeah. Somebody else takes the reins, or a group of people take the reins, and put their own spin on it and make and grow it into something else. That's the goal.
100%. For the folks that are listening to the podcast that are not super technical people,
yeah,
let's break down a little bit of this, like cloud native, cloud to code, cloud infrastructure. I think people can kind of get a general gist of what the cloud is, right? You've got your Microsoft, your Google, your Amazon, et cetera. But with regards to your focus, maybe let's break that down a little bit.
So yeah, let's boil this down. So let's think about some of the bare basic services that everyone consumes. So if we think about whoever's got an iPhone has an iCloud service,
right? Yeah.
Right. So that's something that's identifiable. So what is it? Well, it's somewhere where my pictures get uploaded to, right? It backs up my contacts. If I drop my phone, right, gets run over. I've done that personally, right? How do I restore my data? Well, that's stored in a location. And if we roll back the clock like 20, 30 years ago, we used to store things on solid storage devices, media, so floppy disks, right? I'm dating myself here, or CDs, right? We used to burn CDs, and then we used to have portable hard disks and that kind of thing. And if you think about like the office, or even at home, like people would have servers which were shared resources that people would connect to and use, and there'd be the H drive on there, right? Or somewhere where you would access a system to get access to another service that you can run locally on your laptop.
Yeah.
The cloud is essentially those services, but are managed by someone else. So if we think about it, instead of you backing up your pictures, right, to a USB stick or a portable hard drive, someone else is taking care of that for you, right? And it's in a centralized location and is globally accessible most of the time.
So you're not thinking about which version of an operating system or what sort of other things you have, and whether it's backed up nightly or weekly or all that stuff. You don't think about any of that. You just use it.
You don't have to think about it, right? And I think that's where, and we'll get onto this, right, with startups and the likes of those organizations as well. So you're like, well, I need it to be secure. I need it to be scalable. And to be quite honest, I just want it to work.
Yeah.
I want it to fit my needs and just work, right? Like, I'm not the IT guru, right? I just want the service to work. I'm paying for it. I want it to be reliable. Those kind of things. So it's all about how do you translate those human requirements, as I like to say, right, into technology solutions. And cloud native is something that really is about something that was born in the cloud and wasn't born as a piece of technology like we traditionally used to use, right? We used to call it on premise, right? So physically in the office, right? Or on your desk at home and those kind of things. So cloud native is really designed around modern technologies. So a great example, and everyone's talking about it at the moment, is AI.
Yeah.
Pretty difficult to spin up your own AI instance at home or in the office, right? So what do you do? Well, there's nothing stopping you from doing it, but there's a lot of investment that has to go into that. And then you've got to find the skills to do it. So what do? You can go to the cloud and consume an AI service, right? To support your business or your goals, right? So that's a great example.
Yeah.
And another one is, if we use Netflix as an example, everything they do is cloud native. It's globally scalable, and it doesn't matter which market they're selling to at the end of the day. They can deploy it anywhere. So that's what cloud native is, right? And like those infrastructure services underneath sit under that. And to be quite honest, I always use like the analogy my wife says to me all the time is, I don't care how it works as long as it works.
Yes. Yeah.
So how do you abstract that away, right? And be able to make that valuable for you as an organization, and that's where we come in pretty much.
Right. That's fascinating. And I guess the key to it, and the key to its success, is that specific point, which is it just works. I just use it and it works. And then the second part of that is the cost, right? And so I can go out and buy some used PC somewhere and stick it in my basement, but then I'm responsible for keeping it running and getting it running in the first place, keeping it running, getting the software onto it and making sure that I can access it, and then making sure it's secure, having firewalls and things to make sure that people shouldn't be on there, don't get on there. And then on top of that, if all of a sudden my product or my service needs to be, or gets more successful, or needs to be more effective than it currently is, then I have to expand it and have multiple servers and then have more powerful servers. And I'm covering all of that cost, all of that headache all by myself. It's just not worth it, right? Whereas with a cloud technology like Microsoft's is a great example, of Azure services, you just create an account and then you just go on there and you just put your credit card in, and then whatever services you use, you just get billed for, depending on what it is. It could be the number of transactions, it could be the number of accesses, it could be the number of users, whatever it ends up being that makes sense to that particular piece of technology. And then it just works. And all the backups, all the growth and expansion, if all of a sudden my application becomes famous and millions of people hit it all of a sudden, that technology is already going to take care of it. I don't have to actually think too hard about it, although my price is going to go up.
Obviously, right?
But with that comes a lot of complexity, obviously. So for people, like when you go on to Microsoft Cloud to set up your services and stuff like that, there's a lot there, right? You talk about AI now, and you talk about all these other services. You probably good to know somebody who knows that stuff really well to tell you what to set up. But the fact that you can and then just let it work is amazing.
Yeah, exactly right. So I have a phrase, and it's called start small and build big. It's kind of an analogy that I adopt to absolutely everything. And yeah, so you're not having to go out and figure out which pieces of hardware, right? Like you said, right? Like, how do I even get started? And I've got this idea for an app, and I need to get some developers on board. Like, is this the right stuff that they want to use? Even if it's like buying a car and you don't know what roads you're going to be driving on.
Yeah.
So that's where the cloud is really agile. So you can start off and go, well, this is version 1 of my idea. I guarantee within 5 years, you've probably done about 10 versions of that original idea. But the flexibility is there for you to move in different directions, right? To meet whatever the requirements of the day is, right? To be able to ship whatever the idea is. So, and it'll help you grow with your organization as well. And most folks just start off with simple stuff like, well, I need a professional email. How do I do that?
Yeah.
And folks might be listening going, haven't we got that problem solved? You still would not believe how many times, right? I still get asked, like, how do I get a professional email?
Yeah.
And it's secure and it doesn't get blocked by other companies, right? Or that kind of thing. And I mean, things have come a long way, but there's still, advice that needs to be received, right, around that. And that's just a simple collaboration tool, right? I just want to be able to send messages out, right? And
yes.
How do I even get started with that? How do I incorporate my, my branding and everything else that goes along with that, right? Like my domain name. So yeah, that's the beauty of the cloud now. It's versatile and it sort of serves everything, right? That you need to do to operate a business in this day and age.
Yeah. 100%. And then I guess that capability to, like you spoke of earlier, where you can pivot easily if you're doing things in one way, and then you realize later that there's something else that should be happening, or you need to plug into something else. It's just a few clicks and you're ready to go. You don't have to like roll back and restart from scratch all over again, even though you could easily do that. Yeah. So one of the things that a lot of people don't realize, because you spoke about AI type stuff, and so we have all these large language models that you're hearing about every single day, and every single media and every single social platform are all talking about these AIs. And what people don't realize is the security side of that, right? They're becoming more powerful now. They can read documents, they can interpret pictures, and they can create music and all kinds of other things. So they sort of entice you to put your content in to see what it can do, right? And if you're not careful, and certainly avoid the free versions if you're going to be uploading documents and personal information. But if you're not careful, that information's gone and it's out into the public domain and could be used for whatever anyone wants to use it for. So one of the benefits to Microsoft is that they have their Copilot AI is actually within the tenant that you already pay for as a customer of the Microsoft platform. So whatever you're uploading to Copilot is staying within Copilot and is not getting viewed by everybody at Microsoft and all the people that happen to be on the internet with the right information. So that's a big piece. Do you want to speak to that a little bit?
For sure. Do you know what? I've witnessed so many horror stories around this as well, to your point. A great example was, I think it was with our beloved ChatGPT, right, out there in the wild. Somebody uploaded their sales numbers into it, right, to build out a report, right? And then somebody prompted it, and it literally, somebody else prompted and said, give me the forecast, right, for this company. And guess what? Came back with the data and produced it, right? And that was publicly available on the internet. So folks really need to think about this. Now, I'm a complete AI dependent now, right?
Yeah.
Right? And it's not just because the company that I work for or associated with, it just enables you.
Yes.
It 10x is whatever you're trying to do, right?
Yes.
Yes. And when I think about what we've done at Code to Cloud, everything on there was built out of AI.
Ah, nice.
All of our marketing, all of our the way we approach things, the way we communicate with people, everything. But when it comes to security, you need to think about this, right? Is when something's free as a service, and we think about all the social media platforms that have been around for decades now, right? And you're logging in for free, how do you think that's being paid for?
Exactly.
Well, your data is being capitalized to pay for that service.
Yeah. Nothing's free. So you pay somehow.
You pay somehow, right? There's no such thing as a free lunch.
Yeah.
As the saying goes. So, and the same is with these open, AI LLMs, right? That you find. So you've got to be really careful and the same rules apply. Like, for instance, you wouldn't go rent your email service from a red country.
Mm-hmm.
You wouldn't go and get one set up in Russia, right?
Mm-hmm.
So why would you consume an AI instance from a country, right, that's got ties or has a bad cybersecurity reputation?
Mm-hmm.
You need to do your research. Copilot is an easy one because Microsoft does a lot of work to work with all of these regulatory bodies from across the world, right?
Mm-hmm.
And tries to exceed the standards, right, around data sovereignty, data protection, how the data is used, how do you anonymize the data, how does the AI learn? Because at the end of the day, it first started off with just feeding it books, scanning text, and it would learn. Well, then it got opened up to the internet, right? When you think about ChatGPT. And if we think about the last 18 months, when you first started using it, it's a lot smarter now, right?
Yep, 100%. Yep.
I would say it's probably more like 95% accurate rather than 2 years ago, it was like 60% accurate, right?
Yes.
So when using AI, you've got to think about, if I'm working on a prototype or something that needs to be protected and secured, then I need to know where my data is. And that's where, to your word before, we call it a tenant, isolated environment where no one else has access to that,
Mm-hmm.
to that data, right?
Mm-hmm.
And you're just feeding that instance and you can delete it at any time. So really think about that, because at the end of the day, one, we wouldn't want to give anyone access to our emails, and your AI usage should be the same, right? You should think about it exactly in the same way.
Absolutely. With regards to AI and coding, which is one of the topics we're sliding into quite quickly here. I've heard a term recently, vibe coding.
Yes.
So this concept of vibe coding, if you haven't heard this term, is people using artificial intelligence tools to build software and not necessarily writing the code themselves. And of course, I mean, it's a natural progression of the way things are. And you get sort of like the polarizing effect where the hardcore software developers are angry because if you're a vibe coder, you're not a real coder. You don't know what you're doing. You should be writing the code yourself. And then the other people are like, I don't have time for this. Why should I do all this menial labor stuff when the computer can do it for me? And my place is more on the vibe coding side of things. I've been a developer for 27 years. And honestly, I can't be bothered to write code that's very, very simple and repetitive and stuff like that. So why not have a machine do that? And then I can focus on the harder stuff, like how it should be designed and how to make it put things where it's supposed to put things and stuff like that. Yeah. Do you have any comments? Because you must be deeply involved in all of that.
Oh, yeah, for sure. And I've done a lot of development in the past. And again, work smarter, not harder. And I get it, right? Like, if we think back to anything, like people who did things manually are like, well, that's what gives them an edge, right? They know how it works. But again, it's going to make you a better developer. It's going to make you ship to market quicker. It's more of a product mindset, right? At that point of,
yes,
what is it you're trying to do to add value to the organization? Because at the end of the day, great, I'm a developer, but who's paying my salary?
That's right. That's right.
And it's about getting stuff out the door and into people's hands, right? Whatever it may be.
Yes.
Or supporting services to make their lives easier, right? So they can concentrate on better work. So toil and keeping yourself busy with busy work is not operationally the most best way to operate, right? If we think is a great user example, right? So if I'm deploying some code or I'm getting an AI agent to help me write some code and it's doing it and it's reviewing it and it's going, hey, some major security gaps with this, or one, this is going to cost you a lot of money to run in the cloud because it's inefficiently been developed, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And no one ever wakes up wanting to write bad code.
Nope.
No one ever wants to do that. But if you don't know, you don't know, right? So it's like, well, okay, review my code. And then that means when I'm sending it for a review, or I may be a one-man band or a one-person organization, I'm then using those tools to try and set me up for success. So again, I find it hard because I work with some very smart people. And, like I said, our engineering team in Code to Cloud, they all use AI.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And yeah, they could write the app from scratch. It could take them 4 weeks, but now they can do it in 1 week.
Yeah. Well, I think you hit the key point is ultimately somebody's paying the bill.
Yep.
And, you may ask somebody, if you're paying the bill, do you want to pay somebody to use a tool to generate the code in 20 minutes? Or do you want to pay somebody to spend 4 weeks writing it by hand, which is more valuable to you? Well, I think most people can answer that. The tools are going to be adding the benefit. And I think you probably experience the same thing, is we're actually really far away from someone being able to say, I want you to create me an app that does X, and then it just does it and rolls it out to the cloud and it works perfectly for you. Like we're just nowhere near that right now. But I can say, here's my data model, create an API that matches this data model. And it does a pretty damn good job, right? And you can kind of tweak it a little bit. And then you have a whole bunch of monotonous code that you probably didn't want to write anyway is now there. And you can focus on doing the stuff that's a little bit more fun. Any thoughts on that kind of a direction?
If it's only going to make you better, then why not use it, right? At the end of the day. Yeah. So every day is a school day in tech, especially, right? Oh, yeah. Not just in business, right? In life in general, every day is a school day, right? Yeah. So if I'm, most of the time it's a good place to start. And I do it all the time, right? Like at the moment I'm looking at developing an iOS app for code to cloud, right? So people can go and tap it up. I didn't even know where to start. I said, just give me the bare bones, right? Of how do you even start developing an iOS app? And it gave me simple instructions and said, this is what you need to do. This is how you get enrolled with Apple's developer program. This is the kind of language that you need to deploy in X, Y, Z. And here's some framework to sort of attach yourself to, right? To get you going. And I'm thinking, well, that would have been thousands of dollars in consultancy hours, right? At some point.
Absolutely. Now everybody who does development, no matter what their skill level is, they have a senior developer sitting right beside them and that can help them with anything they need. And I think, to sum it up, I think the analogy that popped into my head is, if there was a guy out there using a handsaw to cut a bunch of logs and somebody came up with a chainsaw and started cutting logs beside him, I doubt that guy would go, you're not a real lumberjack because you're using a chainsaw. You should be using this handsaw. Like, they're going to go, what the heck? How do I get one of those?
It's like walking down the street, right? And seeing somebody get in a car and drive down the street.
Yes.
It's the same kind of thing.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. Except in a traffic jam. And then the guy walking down the street's going faster.
Well, we all know about that, right? Especially the Deerfoot Trail.
Oh, yeah. That's so true. Well, that was a really exciting conversation. I really appreciate. But before we wrap up, is there anything that you wanted to let the listeners know about that I didn't pull out of you?
No, it was a great conversation. But if you want to know more about what we're doing and what we're trying to build here in Alberta, right, or you're looking for some advice, then head over to our website or reach out to me on LinkedIn. More than happy to try and help organizations or folks out.
Excellent. I'll have your LinkedIn and the links to those resources in the show notes for everybody who is interested. Thank you so much for being here today. I really appreciate this, Kevin. And I'm looking forward to chatting with you further on the ethers or maybe in person sometime downtown.
Sounds awesome. Thanks again.
Cheers. Everybody else, we'll see you next week on the Leaders, Innovators, and Big Ideas podcast. Cheers.
If you haven't already, visit rainforestab.ca and sign the Rainforest Social Contract. Become part of the inclusive, silo-busting, sector-agnostic, all-industry, open-sourced, ego-shrinking, ecosystem-building, entrepreneur-focused, wide-open social barrier-smashing community known as Rainforest Alberta.
This episode is brought to you by New Idea Machine, a unique blend of a tech incubator and a software development powerhouse. We're not just building software, we're crafting the next generation of homegrown tech wizards. Got a project in mind or looking to hire fresh talent? Reach out and let's make tech magic happen. Visit newideamachine.com for more info.
Music for the show was created by Tony Deldegan. Please be sure to share this episode with everyone you know. Also, don't forget to come by and say hi at the next Rainforest event. Let us know what you think of this podcast. If you're interested in being either a host, sponsor, or a guest of the show, send me an email at rainforestpodcast@gmail.com. Thanks for listening.